Hello, it's Paul Lawrence Van, and what I want to share with you today is the fact that money makes the world go round. There's nothing wrong with money. We've all heard this thing that when people have money, it makes them crazy. It doesn't make them crazy. What it does do is give them more ability to get the resources, not only that they need, but what they want. So it's very important to understand that. And I'm going to talk about a topic today that involves inheritance. I recently read an article that talked about the baby boomers and whether or not they're going to provide uh, inheritance to their children who happen to be Generation Z. Now, this doesn't include everyone, but it just gives you a good idea. And so, what I'm going to be talking about today is all about that baby boomer to Generation Z inheritance and where one expects to be on that particular space when the time comes. Well, one thing to note is that when we look at who has the most assets right now, it is the baby boomers, because we know with their generation, most of the people are in their 50, late 50s, 60s, 70s, in that area. And so they have more assets. And most of these asset categories happen to be in real estate, the properties they may own, whether it's investments or the home that they live in. But a lot of that does take into consideration that many of people have retired, and even if they're an entrepreneur, they've retired, but they're still uh, self-employed, and so they have children. Now, I'll share a quick story with you about my inheritance. When my mother and father passed away, my parents they decided they wanted to have 10 children. There were 5 boys and 5 girls in our family, and so they didn't have a lot of money. And then when my mother passed away, unbeknownst to me, she actually had an insurance policy for me. She had never told me about it or anything, but we happened to go through her documents, and the insurance company reached out to us and contacted us. So my mother had set away so for me that was some inheritance, and again, something I had no clue that even existed. And so it made me think, okay, so what am I going to do with my two Generation Z children? And so that's part of what today's discussion is going to be about. And I just want to share some insight with you all. Nothing heavy duty, just something to consider. And we're all in different stages and cycles in terms of our work life and in terms of our family life. So it's something to take into consideration. But some of the reasons why the baby boomers, only 22% of them plan to leave an inheritance for their children, is because they're living longer. So they're planning on spending the money on themselves, taking trips, and just enjoying their lives after working so hard for so long to get to this space. And then the cost of healthcare has gone up. And then for a lot of baby boomers who are not expecting it, and the hyperinflation is having an impact. So when we consider these things, baby boomers are looking at it and saying, I think I'm going to take care of myself. And a lot of the Generation Z children think that, and they're planning that they will receive an inheritance, but a lot of them would probably be making a mistake to assume this is actually going to happen. So, for those of you who are listening right now, or who will listen on the archive, what I want you to do is think about where you are in this space as it pertains to inheritance. Perhaps you're not a baby boomer, but if you're the next generation, you also need to start thinking about that as well. And as I stated before, I had happened to read this article, but when we look at the wealth transfer, and that's what inheritance is, it's really phenomenal because baby boomers control more than 50% of the nation's wealth, and they're expected to transfer assets estimated between 30 trillion and 68 trillion over the next few decades. But in all likelihood, it will be a lot more than that. And despite these projected amounts, it may vary significantly based on the family wealth, lifestyle, choices, healthcare costs, as I mentioned before, and Generation Z individuals. And it may appear as a financial safety net, with some counting on significant portions to secure their family futures. And what to look at is, as I stated before, only about 20 to 22% of baby boomers explicitly plan to leave a sizable inheritance to their children. So what are they going to do? Some of them state they're going to go out with nothing. They're going to spend everything and are provided to charitable organizations, which are a good idea. And in many ways, they want their children to also be self-sufficient, which includes being financially independent. And the Generation Z, I would really encourage them to go out and get a career or create their own business because from based on the research that I've read, a lot of them should not be counting on receiving an inheritance. so, uh, so the bottom line is, and what I want you to take into consideration is the financial expectations and the dependence on inheritance. More than half of Generation Z, about 55%, and nearly 6% of millennials are counting on receiving an inheritance to secure their financial futures, particularly when it comes to retirement planning. And as I stated, I had no clue that my even one of my parents, or perhaps both of them, had paid into that insurance policy they had for me. And I would tell the young people today that they should not be counting on their parents. And just like me, I had no clue. So what did I do? I got a job. I started working. I served in the military over 20 years. And I built my own retirement from my efforts, from the work that I performed and I conducted, and now as an entrepreneur. And so it's something for us all to think about and something for all of us to consider. So I'm starting out letting you know that when it comes to inheritance, it could be a nonprofit in the local community, or it could be a national one. But if they're good ideas, are giving money to the university that they attend. And I think that's also a great idea. And so, again, just to recover, baby boomers are looking at increased longevity, their lifespan increasing. We know that there's economic uncertainty out there because we know that during this current election year, that's really the main thing that people are talking about is about the economy and inflation, the price of goods and services, everything has gone up. And then there's also that last aspect, which is the changing attitude about inheritance. And so it's very important for everyone to really understand what's really at stake. And I'm going to share this slide with you real quick as I get ready to wrap up. But it's really about managing your inheritance. Have you thought about it? Well, if you haven't, now is a good time to do it. And now is a good time to do it primarily because we know that the economy is forever shifting. We know that right now the Federal Reserve is giving consideration to lowering the interest rates. And by lowering those interest rates, it means people who were formerly not qualified to purchase a house may now be able to do so. People who are purchasing a vehicle, the interest rates on vehicles, student loans and that student loan debt, medical costs and healthcare costs, the cost of prescription medication. There are a lot of things to factor in. And of course, the price that we pay for food. When we look at the issues, tabletop issues, things such as purchasing bread, milk, eggs, those things like that, that's all increase. And many of us thought that after the pandemic that these things actually will increase in value, but a lot of it had to do with the a number of employees that are involved in those industries, like food production industry, the vineyards, apples, the fruit and vegetable, agricultural, and how that feeds into the U.S. system. So it's a lot to take into account, and it's something that I definitely want you to talk about. and talk about it amongst your family. Talk with your children about it to let them know that they're going to have to really uh, do great in school if they can afford to go to school, attend college and university. And then also when they come out, that they build themselves their own career and or they start their own business. And I think it's very important that this takes place. And so I'm just going to share just a few more things with you here. And they include that the disparity emphasize the need for a proactive, and I mean really proactive financial planning and also financial literacy. That's all important. And so rather than relying on potential inheritance, what to really consider is the conversion between the two generations, baby boomers and Generation Z. And look at what are the expectations and financial planning that could help avoid disappointment and ensure that Generation Z is better prepared to manage their own financial future. And one of the things that I did pick up through the research is the fact that oftentimes some students and even adults do not have the financial intelligence that's required to understand this. And so, what I would recommend, even after listening to me, is to reach out to a financial planner or someone at your bank or insurance company and have a serious discussion with them in terms of how can you learn more. Now, I myself, I've actually been through financial literacy training, so I know how to do this. And for me, I also was a business and accounting major, and I have worked in the accounting department for corporations as well as for the federal government. So it's something that I understand. And one of the things that when it comes to inheritance is that it's a time issue involved. For example, when I first started working in the military as a second lieutenant, I was maybe 21 years old. I turned 22. I think had turned 22 years old. And so fast forward 20 years later, plus 2 years working in corporate America for Fortune 500 company, Mobil Oil. And then I came back into the Air Force and I retired. So that's 22 years. So I was about 43 years old when I retired. And so I had a built-in plan. So for me, when it comes to inheritance, I will receive income from my service in the military for those 20 odd years. And then, of course, any other money I earn as an entrepreneur now and for businesses that I've worked for over the course of years. So, inheritance, it should be a part of your financial planning. It's up to you and your decision in terms of what you're going to do when it comes to your children and how you want to distribute your hard earned money. And it could cause discontent within the family, but don't allow it to, because when you have information, it's just a matter of applying it, doing more research, talking to people, getting on some seminars, some webinars, and learn all that you can. Again, my name is Paul Lawrence Van. My time is up, and I thank you for yours. And today I talked about the all importance of inheritance, and I have a case between baby boomers and their Generation Z children. Now that you have this information, apply it. Hey, I'll see you on the next episode of Wealth Academy podcast. And get out there to YouTube and take a look at this particular episode and others. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.